American Comics, Saiyan powers shock Spider-Gwen and the universe. Episode 51, Inflated Chi, SHIELD intervenes. Outside, the Hell's Kitchen Police Department received a report from Fergie Nelson and Karen Page. Out of trust in Daredevil, Inspector Misty still believed their words and prepared to call the police, but at this moment, the police station's call to the police went off in an instant. In the area of Hell's Kitchen, a large number of people fought and burned, causing huge amounts of chaos. It's a hand conspiracy. They're stalling. The female reporter Peggy said impatiently, and Misty shook her head helplessly, but this is effective, and our police force was emptied in an instant. Foggy asked, then what should we do now? Daredevil and the others have already gone to the Midtown Financial Circle. Misty thought for a moment, then called the NYPD headquarters to apply for support. And the black hand behind all this, Jean Ben, also received a mysterious phone call. Stop your little actions, or I don't mind putting you in prison for 500 years. Who are you? Jean Bing frowned, looking at the unknown number on the phone. You don't deserve to know. I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. After this time, the Sidewinder missile will be delivered to your home. After speaking, he hung up the phone. Jean Ben's face was cloudy and uncertain, and he once again experienced the feeling of being contemptuous. Be it the Scion or the owner of this mysterious phone, they didn't take themselves seriously at all. Jean didn't feel humiliated, but he didn't dare to gamble. The other party revealed a few secrets of his own in a few words, so since he said that he was going to entertain him with the Sidewinder missile, it must not be a lie. Let everyone come back. How do you plan to absorb it, eat it? In the underground cave, Gwen looked at the behemoth in front of him, and his skin was about to get goosebumps. In the dark space, a pile of bone frames emit fluorescence, and this scene alone is creepy. Imagine Sun Wuming breaking off the bones piece by piece, and then chewing and chewing. Gwen shivered violently. What are you thinking? I'm not that disgusting. Patting the girl's little head, Sun Wuming circled the keel, and then flew into the air. Open the palm, release the chi in the body, wrap the keel completely, trying to penetrate it. After being stimulated by him, keel instinctively began to resist, and the green fluorescent light flourished, illuminating the entire space, and Gwen took a few steps back, afraid of disturbing Sun Wuming. Without Shou Lao's soul, the keel is essentially a treasure containing powerful life energy. The hand would use bone powder to prepare special potions to capture the energy in the keel and prolong their lifespan. Now, what Sun Wuming has to do is to bring the energy of the keel back into his body, which can also be regarded as a kind of devouring. He constantly adjusted his aura, aligning with the keel's aura fluctuations. It was like picking a lock. Sun Wuming constantly tried the keys until he made a lock that could unscrew the keel. Click. After the door opens, Sun Wuming will be regarded as the master of this room, and he can take away everything he wants. The surging energy found a gap, bent it out, and flowed back into Sun Wuming's body, constantly. At this moment, his momentum was soaring, and his hair was standing upside down. Gwen felt that it was difficult to breathe, and retreated again, and had already reached the edge of the passage. With the energy loss of the keel, this space also became unstable, causing 2 earthquakes in a row. Wuming, stop eating, New York is really going to be ruined. Gwen was very entangled at the moment, thinking about whether to interrupt Sun Wuming. Hi. Fortunately, Sun Wuming finally opened his eyes, let out a satisfied belch, and landed on the ground. He had a bit of indigestion from taking in too much at once. At the moment, there was less than 20% of the energy left in Keel's body, and if he sucked it in, something might really happen, so Sun Wuming let it go. Anyway, today's harvest has been great. Let's go, I have to retreat to practice when I go home. Sun Wuming said to Gwen in a very comfortable mood. Gwen pointed to the other end of the passage. What about this seal, can you fix it? Sun Wuming shook his head. Don't bother, the Iron Fist seal will be repaired automatically, and it will be back to normal in a few hours. Gwen was relieved. I hope this secret will never be exposed for the rest of my life. I don't want to fall asleep and suddenly the house collapses. Then I'll add another insurance. Sun Wuming said suddenly. At the construction site, a large number of policemen have rushed to the scene, even George, who is the chief of police, has also come. A cordon has been set up around, and the people in the 2 nearby blocks were all evacuated. After doing this, the police did not enter the building rashly. There have been 2 consecutive earthquakes just now, and this building is already in danger. Once there is another earthquake, no one can escape. The situation thus stalemate. George was arranging the on-site work, but he saw his subordinates walking towards him with a middle-aged man with a tall hairline. Although the man's smile was very kind, George was still very dissatisfied. Sir, it's very dangerous here now, please don't disturb the work of our police. Hello, Chief George. Phil Coulson didn't mind George's cold face, and took out his ID and some I-4 papers from his suit pocket. Phil Coulson, FBI high-level agent, we have been authorized, and we will be fully responsible for this operation. FBI? George's face turned cold. I took a look at the authorization letter and Phil Coulson's ID, and after confirming that they were all true, I felt extremely dissatisfied. It is not once or twice that these agent organizations have interfered in local affairs with their high authority, but with the documents, everything they do is legal and compliant, and George has nothing to do. Need help? George asked again. Thank you, Director George, for your kindness, but we still have enough manpower. Phil Coulson still kept smiling. While speaking, a group of agents in suits and leather shoes had already taken over the police duties. Several heavily armed teams were about to enter the building. A rumbling sound suddenly came from inside. Episode 52, Destroy the building with your palm, Phil Coulson's exclamation. Boom. 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 The strange noise became louder and louder. Phil Coulson immediately stopped the special operations team and told them to retreat. Just about to leave, George and other members of the police force quickly stopped and turned to look in the direction of the building. A large cloud of dust came out from the building, and then the sound of heavy objects falling became louder and louder. Mr. Agent, I suggest that you should step back, this building is about to collapse. George, keenly aware of the tremor in the ground, yelled at Phil Coulson. A group of blue rays of light broke through the roof and came into midair. Phil Coulson quickly picked up the telescope and looked towards the sky. Honey, your head is really hard. Gwen, who was in Sun Wuming's arms, said seriously. Just now, the two rushed up from hundreds of meters underground, and all the concrete and steel bars they encountered were all lifted by Sun Wuming. Believe me, your head will also become very hard in the future. Sun Wuming responded to Gwen's teasing, pretending to be serious, which was unique to the two of them. Immediately afterwards, he turned his gaze downwards, holding Gwen in one hand, and a blue light was already shining in the other hand. As long as the hole in the ground is filled, the keel will be absolutely safe. Sun Wuming explained to the girl that with her supervision, Gwen saw a group of policemen and agents and reminded, don't affect other people, can you? You don't believe in my strength. After speaking, Sun Wuming pressed down with one free hand. Drink. The thick energy wave dragged a long tail flame and went straight to the building. It was so dazzling and eye-catching in the dark night sky. Boom. The strong flash made people unable to keep their eyes open, and Phil Coulson stretched out his hand to block it in front of him and shouted, run. The farther the better. The dust all over the sky almost stuffed his mouth, and the agents ran away in a panic. It took a full 30 seconds for the dazzling light to disappear. The building with a height of nearly 100 meters has disappeared, replaced by ruins all over the place. Most of the main body of the building has been pressed into the ground. From then on this land, unless someone spends a lot of money and energy to hollow out all the ruins. Otherwise, there would never be a house in sight, because the foundations would have been ruined. Great, I want to learn this trick. Gwen first confirmed that her father and the others were not injured, but a little embarrassed, and then cheered. She has some distaste for killing people, but not for the loss of money, destroying the property of bad guys, and keeping the city safe. This made her feel that Wuming was the thieves in the story, and the love in her eyes overflowed. If you want to learn, you have to please the teacher. Maybe I'll teach you as soon as I'm happy? Sun Wuming hinted frantically, and Gwen smacked his chest shyly. On the ground, although the police and agents are covered in dust, they look like they just came out of the desert. But in the end no one was injured, which shows the precision of Sun Wuming's power control. Looking at the distant blue streamer in the sky, Phil Coulson put down his binoculars and muttered to himself. This world is too crazy. If the Saiyans do demolition, they will definitely become the richest man in the United States. He was ordered by Nick Fury to take over the case, because according to intelligence, the recent actions of the Han Society are inseparable from the Saiyans. His main task is to get close to the Saiyans and have a good talk with them in order to establish a preliminary relationship. Looking at it this way, the mission appears to have failed. However, Phil Coulson felt that the reward was greater. Through the binoculars, he could clearly see the face of the lower Saiyan, surrounded by gas flames. Sun Wuming didn't change his appearance anymore, and he wasn't a killer anymore, so there was no need to hide like this. The main thing is that after he changed his appearance, Gwen didn't like it so much, and Sun Wuming stopped doing it. Leaving his men on the scene to deal with the aftermath, Phil Coulson got into his car and sped toward Washington. 2 hours later, Phil Coulson showed up in Nick Fury's office. You said you saw the true face of a Saiyan? No, it's just another face. I'm not sure if it's the real face. As an agent, Phil Coulson has mastered some basic skills very proficiently. He immediately picked up the paper and pen and started drawing with the memory in his mind. Sun Wuming is actually very easy to remember. After all, he is very handsome, which is amazing and unforgettable. Soon, a stick figure was placed in front of Nick Fury, and with the authority of Shield, the target was quickly locked. Wuming Sun? Phil Coulson leaned over, looked at the photo, and said with great certainty, "Boss, that's him. Such a handsome Asian is too rare, and he has such muscles. I just don't know, it's the Saiyan who disguised himself as him, or the Saiyan himself." Nick Fury didn't jump to conclusions, but browsed the data of Sun Wuming. Soon, he found something suspicious. Sun Wuming is too rich. The shares of Stark Industries he once held were worth tens of millions of dollars, and his monthly bank expenses exceeded $100,000. The old man who adopted him did not have such a rich family background. Nick Fury is sure that there is definitely something wrong with Sun Wuming, and it is very likely that he is a Saiyan. Phil Coulson. As soon as Fury called his name again, Phil Coulson quickly reminded, "Boss, I'm still following up the case of Stark Industries, and I really don't have time. My own boss is good at everything, but he likes to grab someone and use it too much. Recently, he doesn't even have time to do scalp care, and he really doesn't want to have another job at hand." Okay then. Fury sighed, and after thinking about it, it's not a good thing to be in contact with Sun Wuming for a while. The character of the other party is unpredictable, and it is not an exaggeration to call it murderous. Sending people to follow up hastily may have the opposite effect. We must wait for an appropriate time. Episode 53, Deep Sea Body Training, Absolute Strength, Can Break Any Rule. After absorbing the power of the keel, Sun Wuming returned home and began to practice. At the moment, he was like a fat man after overeating, almost doubled the energy accumulated in his body, which made Sun Wuming full of strength, but also brought hidden dangers. After all, external forces are not as reliable as self-cultivation. At the beginning, Monkey King drank the super divine water and survived with difficulty. Now Sun Wuming is not that dangerous, but this energy needs to be tempered before it can be completely transformed into its own strength. But he ran into another problem. With the current level of technology and material technology, the equipment in Sun Wuming's hands can no longer meet his cultivation needs. The Continental has some higher-level materials, but not by much, and that weight gain is a drop in the bucket. In other words, he had to travel far away. The next day. As usual, Gwen came to the house to find Sun Wuming to go to school with, but got an unexpected answer. "Sorry Gwen, I can't accompany you to school at the latest." Gwen was taken aback. "Why?" "I have to go to other places to practice. The equipment at home can't meet my needs." Gwen's mood was visibly depressed. Sun Wuming rubbed the girl's little head and comforted him. "It's not that I won't come back, but I'm not sure when I will come back." "So where are you going? Is there any danger?" "The bottom of the sea." Sun Wuming said softly, "Only the deep sea can bring me pressure. In fact, I should have gone there a long time ago. There is no gravity room, no high-tech load, on Earth, only the high-pressure environment of the deep sea can meet his cultivation needs." After making a promise to Gwen that she would spend one day a week with her, Gwen went to school alone, unhappy. Once the most difficult one is done, the rest will be easy to solve. After calling the school first and donating another $2 million, he got the final exam results ahead of schedule and was awarded the title of honorary alumnus. Then there is the supply. Scions are powerful in battle, but they also need to eat and drink, especially during high-intensity cultivation. The need for food is extremely terrifying. Tell Winston to prepare high-calorie food for 100 people at his home for a long time, and once it is found that it has been consumed, it must be replenished immediately. After all the preparations were completed, Sun Wuming flew towards the coastline. Flying all the way over New York, into the vast and boundless Atlantic Ocean, half an hour later, after traveling thousands of kilometers further, Sun Wuming stopped. It is too close to the land, the ocean depth is not enough, and it is easily disturbed by fishing boats and cruise ships. In the center of the Atlantic Ocean, it is almost a forbidden area for humans. A plunge into the sea, Sun Wuming sinks continuously, and the pressure will increase by 9.8 MPa for every 1,000 meters deep. What concept? Without any protective measures, normal human beings will not be able to breathe at a depth of 200 meters, and their bones will start to shatter if they exceed 1,000 meters. Sun Wuming sank directly to 5,000 meters before his body felt a little pressure. But here, there are very few creatures to be seen, and even if there are, they are some strange-shaped species. At 6,000 meters, he finally stopped going down. Even if he moved a step, it would become extremely difficult. The surrounding sea water turned into an iron wall, constantly squeezing Sun Wuming's body. Through the circulation of qi, the outer qi was transformed into inner qi, and Sun Wuming started his own penance career. The first thing to do is to practice walking. His expression was ferocious, and he seemed to have exhausted all his strength to lift his legs. It took him a long time to take the first step. 1 step, 2 steps. New York. Since Sun Wuming entered the state of cultivation, Gwen has become listless, as if life has lost its color. Although we can see each other from time to time, every time Sun Wuming comes back, he looks tired, either eating or sleeping soundly. It was too late for Gwen to be distressed, so why bother him? George and Helen saw it, but they didn't know how to persuade them. To the outside world, Gwen said that Sun Wuming was going to participate in the competition, and in order not to disturb him, he could not call. It's only been a few days, and I don't think about food or tea anymore. My daughter is too poisoned. Walking on the street, Gwen looked at the familiar street. In the past, there would be a lazy teenager by his side, but now he was alone. Now, Gwen finally understands why Sun Wuming always said that companionship is the longest confession of love. It turned out that the world would be different with him around and without him. To keep her spirits up, Gwen put more energy into being Spider-Woman. New Yorkers have discovered that Spider-Woman is appearing more and more frequently, and perhaps they can see her vigorous figure wandering among skyscrapers when they look up. Continental Hotel. Is there no news about the other 2 Dragon Balls? Winston called Sharon, and Sun Wuming told him that there are 7 Dragon Balls in total, and 5 of them have been collected now. The last 2 must be found no matter what. Sorry sir, there are no clues about Dragon Ball these days. With our current strength, this step is already the limit. Winston lowered his head to think for a few seconds, and suddenly saw the gold coin box on the table. This is a batch of hotel gold coins that have just been delivered. Let the continental hotels in other regions help us release missions. Maybe those 2 Dragon Balls are not in North America. Sir, is this a bit out of bounds? Sharon hesitated. There is no direct competition between hotels in various continents, but the hidden rule is that each manages its own territory. It was too long for Winston to release missions in other regions with such a big fanfare. Winston stood up, came to Sharon and patted the right-hand man on the shoulder, and said meaningfully, Sharon, this world is different. Absolute strength can break any rule. In this way, a month passed quietly. Episode 54, Tony returns, Green Goblin is born. In the Middle East, the terrorist organization 10 Rings attacked the Rice Army convoy 3 months ago and captured the seriously injured Tony Stark. With the help of Dr. Ethan, although Tony escaped death, under the threat of terrorist organizations, he still has to make weapons for them. But Tony, who is a genius scientist and a playboy, how could he help 10 Rings honestly? During this period of time, he used material sent by terrorist organizations to forcibly rub out the first-generation miniature arc reactor, embedded in his chest, and firmly absorbed the shrapnel that wanted to penetrate his heart. At the same time, he was quietly building an armor that could help him and Ethan escape. Clang! 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 The crisp sound of hammering iron came from the cave, and the Mk1 battle armor was about to be completed. Tony, whose face had been gloomy for 3 months, also showed a rare smile. Speaking of which, Ethan, what do you want to do after you go out? Me? Ethan, who was sitting in front of the computer and helping Tony check the data, was taken aback, with a look of reminiscence in his eyes. I want to see my family. Most definitely. Tony was silent for 2 seconds, then spoke softly. At the last step, when the Mk1 armor was about to be completely completed, the members of 10 Rings discovered something was wrong. Hearing the sound of footsteps outside, Ethan finally chose to sacrifice his life to buy time for Tony. Although they have only been together for less than 3 months, Tony has undoubtedly regarded Ethan as a true friend. With Ethan's legacy in mind, Tony wore the armor and broke out of the 10 Rings base. After flying dozens of kilometers, the armor finally fell apart. Maybe it's because his life shouldn't die, or maybe it's because he is the son of destiny in this world. In this vast desert, before Tony died of thirst, he was finally found by the rescue team who never gave up looking for him. A day later, on a military plane, Tony set foot on the United States again. On the tarmac, when Tony appeared in bandages, Pepper's eyes filled with tears. Feeling sad for the boss? Tony joked. No, it's tears of joy. I don't like looking for a job. After getting in the car, Pepper was about to tell Happy, who was acting as the driver, to go to the hospital, but was interrupted by Tony. Go back to the office, tell the press I'm holding a press conference, Happy, and buy me a cheeseburger on the way. Pepper said puzzled, but Tony, your body. I know my body well, don't worry, Pepper, go to the company. The car started and went straight to Manhattan. Tony on the road looked out of the window out of boredom, but was frightened stupid. Holy shit. What's this? Why would this person be swinging between skyscrapers? When Happy heard this, he smiled foolishly. Boss, this is Spider-Woman. You will get used to it after seeing her a lot. She is a good neighbor to New Yorkers. Seeing the two of them fully accepting this setting, Tony couldn't help but fall into self-doubt when he seemed to be making too much fuss. I disappeared for 3 months, will New York change? Osborne Industries. Norman, after the discussion of the board of directors, your position as chairman has been removed. The recent Osborne industry can be said to be leaking and raining overnight. Although the lizard man was not known to the general public, the higher-ups naturally knew the true identity of Dr. Connors. As a result, Osborne Industries lost a large defense order. And not long ago, an electric engineer of the company had an accident while overhauling the circuit, and turned into a special existence of half-energy, half-life, which caused a lot of trouble. In the end, Spider-Woman came forward to subdue him and sent him to prison. 2 consecutive accidents at Osborne Industries made the government completely impatient with them. The board of directors must push out a person with weight to take the blame. So, who else is more suitable to be the backer than the chairman who single-handedly promotes biological genetic experiments? Although named Osborne Industries, the rest of the board combined to impeach Norman. Lying on the hospital bed, watching the directors leaving one after another through the video, Norman did not show any anger. Instead he laughed. But his smile made people feel creepy, and they didn't dare to look at him for another second. Norman took a vial of green serum out of the drawer. This is the most stable gene serum produced so far, integrating Dr. Lizard's terror-repairing ability and Spider Serum's agility. But the risk is still very high, and none of the experimenters who were injected with the serum reached a perfect state. But now Norman can't wait any longer. He wants to survive, he wants to take revenge on those businessmen who follow the trend, and he wants to take revenge on this society. Ah. A creepy roar came from the high-level ward, and then disappeared, and everything fell into silence. Half an hour later, a green figure stepped on a flight controller and flew out of the building. He succeeded. Facing the mirror-like glass, Osborne constantly made difficult flight movements and let out a series of laughs. At the moment, Norman felt empowered as the genetic disease that had been tormenting the Osborne family finally disappeared from his body. The feeling of being healthy was so wonderful that every second of his life was tormented by his dry body. Flight is in the sky. Green Goblin's personality is constantly expanding. Looking at the bustling city, he has a strong impulse in his heart. He wants to destroy all good things. Episode 55. Evil villains emerge endlessly. Spider-Woman vs. Green Goblin. The next day, 2 news colleagues made headlines on the front page of the newspaper, each occupying half of the country. Tony Stark has returned after disappearing for 3 months. Announced that the Stark Group's weapons manufacturing department will be permanently closed. Terrorist attack. A green man stepped on a flight gun and dropped a large number of bombs, causing hundreds of casualties. Who is responsible for this? In a beach house, Tony browsed the file-size incidents in New York during the months of his disappearance. Spider-Woman, Lizard Monster, Saiyan, Electro, and this new Green Goblin. Damn it, have I been missing for 3 months or 3 years? Why is biotechnology blowing out all of a sudden? Although Tony Stark's main research direction is applied physics, a genius is a genius. He can tell at a glance that Spider-Woman and Lizard Man are both products of biological experiments. And that Green Goblin, the bomb contains a strong corrosive poisonous gas, and it is also biochemical. JARVIS, can you lock the identities of these people? Sir, according to the information collected on the internet and the company's information database, it can be determined that the real identity of the Lizard Man is Kurt Connors. Electric Man's true identity is the former Osborne industrial electrical engineer, Max Dillon. Spider-Woman has targeted 18 suspected targets. Science and Green Goblin have little information, so it is impossible to give an accurate judgment. Immediately, JARVIS retrieved all the information of Connors and Max. An employee of Osborne? Tony raised an eyebrow. As the 2 technology giants of the United States, Osborne and Stark have different research directions. One is biased towards bioengineering, and the other is biased towards physical technology. However, the main partners of the 2 parties are the military, which also leads to a competitive relationship between Stark and Osborne. Because of Tony's existence, Stark can suppress Osborne, and now seeing the other party make such a big mess, he also feels a little gloating. But Tony soon stopped being disturbed by the unexpected world and concentrated on studying the Mk2 armor. Tony has been extremely anxious and insecure since returning to the United States. Only the feeling of being wrapped in a battle armor can bring him a little peace of mind. Meanwhile, Gwen is also on the hunt for the Green Goblin. Since she became Spider-Woman, New York has never been peaceful. The lizard disappeared and the hand came out, and the hand came out and the Electro. Not long after Electro was locked up, here comes a Green Goblin. Compared with the previous villains, Green Goblin seems to be more difficult to deal with. Because of his wisdom and rationality, Green Goblin killed a large number of ordinary people before Gwen arrived and walked away. A few days later, Green Goblin finally reappeared. He stepped on the flight controller and randomly sprinkled the pumpkin bombs in his hand on the crowd. Every small pumpkin that looks like a pocket can trigger a violent explosion when it falls on the ground, which will affect the surrounding cars and trigger a chain reaction. The bustling Fifth Avenue turned into a hell on earth in an instant. People screamed and fled this area, but how could two legs run past a Green Goblin with a flight device? Green Goblin yelled strangely and caught up with the group of people who ran away, and dropped the bomb again to end their lives. The excitement in his heart couldn't be more exciting. The worse he screamed, the happier he was. Suddenly, Green Goblin saw the building in front of him, and Spider-Woman wearing a black and white battle suit was constantly approaching him with the help of the cobweb. Seeing the arrival of Spider-Woman, Green Goblin temporarily gave up attacking the people and went forward instead of retreating. After waiting for Gwen to approach, the pumpkin launcher under his feet fired 2 pumpkin bombs. Whizzing! Gwen's reaction was extremely fast. The cobweb wrapped the bomb, and then he threw it hard, and the bomb was returned. Boom! Boom! After the violent explosion, Green Goblin fell from the flight controller to the ground, looking very embarrassed. Spider-Woman is here. We're saved. The crowd on the ground saw that Gwen suppressed Green Goblin as soon as he made a move, and immediately felt relieved. They stopped running and just stood there watching the show. Green Goblin, you madman. I'm going to send you to prison to atone for everything you've done. Gwen Absorbent was on the wall, looking at the dead people, extremely angry. You're right, I'm a lunatic. What's wrong with a lunatic doing crazy things? Norman Osborn, who only showed half of his face, looked at Gwen and sneered, what about you? Spider Brat, you're just a thief. You stole other people's experimental results, and you brazenly showed them off. Gwen's heart skipped a beat. Green Goblin's words meant something, and he seemed to know how he obtained his ability. I never thought it was showing off. I just wanted to do something meaningful, like, catch you and hand it over to the police. You think you can do it? Green Goblin laughed maniacally, and the time the two of them talked, the flight controller had returned to his feet. The 2 sharp wings were used as weapons, and everything that passed was split in half. After such a long period of training, Gwen's spider genes have been completely integrated, and her strength and agility have reached their peak. Not only that, she has also made great progress in the practice of Gixianliu. Gwen does a backflip, dodges a Green Goblin pounce, and shoots a cobweb that binds the flight to try to limit his movement. Sorry sir, your wheelchair will be confiscated by me. A sharp-tongued woman. Green Goblin stepped hard, and the flight device rotated at a high speed, cutting off the cobweb's entanglement. The two started a street fight in this forest of skyscrapers. Episode 56, Hundreds of Refinements into Steel, Breakthrough in Strength. With the blessing of the flight weapon, Green Goblin can move more flexibly in the air than Gwen. With the sharpness of the flight weapon, he can also cut off Gwen's cobweb. However, his attack could not pose any threat to Gwen. The pumpkin bomb with the strongest firepower could be easily dodged by Gwen, and even if he seized the opportunity, the opponent could throw it back, making him embarrassed. Damn it, damn it. Spider-Woman, you damn it. Green Goblin was mad with hatred in his heart, why he couldn't beat the Spider Kid even though he injected the serum. Obviously his serum is the strongest existence that combines lizards and spiders. He, Green Goblin, is the strongest. Spider-Woman, she's just a despicable thief. The suppressed anger finally drove Green Goblin completely crazy. He gave up attacking Gwen, and aimed all his firepower at the crowd and buildings. In order to rescue the people, Gwen gradually fell into a disadvantage. This was the first time she had encountered such a crazy opponent. Neither the Lizard Man nor the Electron Man was as crazy as Green Goblin, and they didn't put the lives of ordinary people in their eyes at all. Gwen was also angry. She fell to the ground, pulled up street lamps, fire hydrants, utility poles, and threw all the things that could be thrown towards the Green Goblin in the air. Boom! Accidentally, Green Goblin's flight gun was hit, and blue smoke came out. Looking at the sky, in the distance, the police helicopter was coming towards here. Green Goblin knew that he could no longer entangle. Spider-Woman. I'll be back. As long as you're in New York for a day, then I'm the city's nightmare. After speaking, he poured out all the remaining firepower and escaped with the help of chaos. And because Gwen wanted to intercept the pumpkin bomb, he could only watch Green Goblin disappear in midair, leaving behind a scene of hell. While this has happened to New York several times, there's no doubt that Green Goblin did the most damage this time around. Hundreds of people were killed and countless public facilities were destroyed in the first appearance. The second time, I came to Fifth Avenue, which is the center of Manhattan, where countless elites gather. Several directors of Osborne Industries were killed, hundreds more were killed, and 2 buildings were badly damaged. Economic losses came in the billions of dollars. This completely detonated public opinion. On the internet and in newspapers, people crazily criticized the government and the police, and cursed Green Goblin. Even Gwen was not spared. Spider-Woman should be responsible for this incident. Without her fighting with Green Goblin, maybe the loss would not have been so heavy. She is the representative of disaster. Since the appearance of Spider-Woman, all kinds of monsters and ghosts have appeared. I suspect that they are in the same group. That's right. How peaceful New York was before. Except for gun battles, flour, and human trafficking, there will never be such monsters. Spider-Woman is the source. What does NYPD do? Why hasn't Spider-Woman's true identity been announced yet? Facing the anger of the public, the police also took advantage of the situation and announced that they would shift all responsibility to Green Goblin and Spider-Woman, and officially listed them as wanted criminals. Gwen sat in front of the computer, watching the comments and speeches, her eyes full of pain. Why did it become like this? I was clearly trying to make this city a better place, but why should I classify her with those evil people? And my father actually wanted me to. For a moment, Gwen fell into deep self-doubt, looking at the battlesuit on the bed, her fingers trembling slightly. Atlantic Ocean, Puerto Rico Trench, 9,000 meters deep. It is dark here, like an abyss, and sunlight cannot penetrate the depth of 9,000 meters to come to this restricted area of life. Rumble. Rumble. A strange muffled sound came, the sea current became violent, and the ground trembled slightly. The muscles of Sun Wuming's hands were raised high, and the veins were exposed. He gritted his teeth tightly and pushed a hill to move slowly. 1 meter, 2 meters, 10,000 meters. It was a full 100,000 meters before he stopped, and then closed his eyes and meditated. After more than a month of penance, Sun Wuming moved from 6,000 meters under the sea to 9,000 meters under the sea. From running very hard at the beginning, to being able to push a hill now. His progress has been enormous. The body has been tempered under tremendous pressure, as if it has been trained for a long time. Under the streamlined body, the power of explosion is hidden, and the energy absorbed from the keel is completely digested. Compared with before, the strength has more than tripled. However, Sun Wuming did not know what stage his strength was at, having never fought against a strong man. In Marvel, there is a set of strength division standards. They are the most planet level, level sub-godfather, level single universe, and multi-universe levels. The star level is the broadest, from the lowest level of Daredevil, to Thor who has not yet awakened Thor's power. They are both at the same star level, but their destructive power is not the same. A level sub-godfather refers to an existence that can display part of the strength of a level godfather, but as long as it is against a real level godfather, it will undoubtedly lose. Such as Thanos without gems, Doctor Strange with Time Gem, Hela who is not in Asgard. And the level godfather is the overlord in the single universe, at least able to sit on a galaxy, and the heavenly father is also called the God King. Only the leader of a pantheon can reach the level of level godfather. The representative figures are Odin and Ancient One. Before these 2 bosses died, Thanos knew that the space gem was here, and he didn't even dare to put one. As for level single universe, multi-universe level, super universe level, and almighty universe level, these realms are still far away from the current Sun Wuming, and he can't figure it out. According to Sun Wuming's estimate, his current strength should have broken through the star level, but it is difficult to estimate his specific position among the sub-celestial fathers. It's almost enough to practice here. This is the deepest seabed in the Atlantic Ocean. Even if it is changed to the Mariana Trench, it will not cause a qualitative change. Sun Wuming thought the harshest environment on Earth has been conquered by him, and the remaining strength improvement is not so easy. So, it's time to relax, too. During this period of time, he didn't accompany Gwen well, which made Sun Wuming feel a little guilty. Drink. Sun Wuming yelled violently, and the chi in his body exploded, opening up the nearby seawater. With his body as the center, the seawater above was directly opened up, and a strange scene of water flowing backwards appeared. Wukong activated, Sun Wuming soared into the sky, crossed the sea, and quickly flew towards New York, and clusters of sonic boom clouds formed behind him. The speed of Sun Wuming is also several times faster than before, reaching the terrifying level of Mach 10. With a distance of thousands of kilometers, he flew back to New York in less than half an hour. The first thing I did when I got home was to find my phone and send Gwen a message. Gwen, I'm back. Episode 57, George discovers the truth, you are my anchor in this world. At Gwen's house, Gwen, who was watching TV to pass the time, heard the phone ringing, and casually picked it up. I thought it was MJ and Betty who asked her to go shopping. But after seeing the person who wrote the letter, his eyes lit up immediately. Dad. Mom. I'm going out for a while, Wuming is back. After finishing speaking, without waiting for the two to reply, Gwen went back to the room and changed clothes, looked at the battle suit hesitation hidden in the deepest part of the closet for a moment, turned around and walked out of the house without reaching for it. This child, he was so happy when he heard that Wuming was back. Helen chuckled, and she was also very happy to see Gwen back to normal. They all said that love is the most effective antidote in the world. Perhaps the antidote that belongs to Gwen is Wuming. But George, who was resting at home on the weekend, looked at the door thoughtfully. He heard from Helen that some time ago, Gwen was away from home all day, but these days she always stays at home with nothing to do. Miraculously, Spider-Woman has also disappeared these days and never appeared on the streets of New York again. Coupled with some clues and ideas he had obtained before, George's heart was shaken, and an astonishing guess emerged. Spider-Woman, is it Gwen? On the other side, Gwen has come to Sun Wuming's house. When the two met, they hugged each other without saying a word, and then kissed passionately, expressing their lovesickness, like two beavers fighting over grapes. It took more than 10 minutes for the overlapping figures to separate, and Gwen gasped heavily, feeling a lack of oxygen. Sun Wuming carried her back to the living room, and asked softly when Gwen recovered. Gwen, what happened? The person who knows Sun Wuming best is Gwen, and the person who knows Gwen best is also Sun Wuming. As soon as they met, Sun Wuming discovered Gwen's abnormality. Although Gwen concealed it well, the smile she showed was sincere. But Sun Wuming could see a trace of melancholy from between her brows. Thinking of this, the anger in Sun Wuming's heart rose steadily. For him, Gwen is the most important person in this world, bar none. Because of Gwen, Sun Wuming has a bond with this world. It can be said that Gwen is the anchor of his existence in the subworld. If there is no Gwen by his side, maybe he has grown into a standard Saiyan, belligerent, tyrannical, and emotionally weak. Even if the world is destroyed, it is not uncommon. Now someone dared to provoke his Gwen to be unhappy. Thinking of this, Sun Wuming felt a wave of tyranny out of thin air. No, I'm just so happy to see you back, what's the matter, I'm Spider-Woman. Gwen still wanted to hide the past, but Sun Wuming saw through it at a glance. He kissed the girl's forehead and asked softly, if that's the case, then why did you take a taxi here? Gwen was silent. She didn't know what kind of purpose she would have after wearing the battle suit. Anger, resentment, or complaining? Either way, Gwen didn't want to face it. In a depressed mood, she spoke about her recent experience, Green Goblin's arrogance and cruelty, the responsibilities of the people, and her father's incomprehension. Su Wuming hugged the girl distressedly, it's not your fault, the ignorant and incompetent people always make up the majority in the world. When they're powerless in the face of disaster, they blame others, and you're just something they've found to vent. There is no Spider-Man, there is Tiger-Man, Lion-Man, anyway, they will not admit that they are incompetent. Let's not take that anger anymore, we won't be Spider-Woman anymore. Gwen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She really doesn't want to act as Spider-Woman right now, so she might as well take a break for a while. After figuring it out, Gwen's depression dissipated a lot, and she twisted in Sun Wuming's arms to find a comfortable position. What about you? Do you want to continue practicing? Not for the time being. Sun Wuming shook his head. The strength has reached my current level. It is difficult to improve by practicing alone. I have to go through an evenly matched battle to break through quickly. It just so happens that it's summer vacation, how about we go out for a walk? Okay, where are you going? Gwen immediately became interested when she heard that she could go out to play. How about California, I happen to have a beach house over there. Sun Wuming definitely is bullshit, he has never been to California, where is the beach house? But as long as Gwen agrees, Sun Wuming can buy a set immediately. Thinking of the beaches and sunshine in California, as well as their world of two, Gwen was really moved. Then let's go in these 2 days. No problem. Gwen sent a sweet kiss. With a boyfriend who loves her so much, the grievances she has suffered these days are nothing. The two were enjoying the long-lost warmth, and Gwen asked curiously, "My dear, what is your current strength?" Gwen has seen Sun Wuming take shots a few times, but each time he crushed them with ease, and the strength he showed was not even the tip of the iceberg. Coupled with the fact that he spent a month in the deep sea to practice hard this time, Gwen couldn't imagine that there is anyone on Earth who is Sun Wuming's opponent. "What about me?" Sun Wuming organized his words, and said with some uncertainty, "I'm not sure what my strength is, but at least it's not a problem to sink the North American continent with one blow." Gwen was dumbfounded. "My boyfriend is so strong?" Episode 58, about to pick the perfect fruit, the cooperation between Green Goblin and Obadiah. "Winston, help me buy a beach house in Los Angeles, with a private beach, the bigger the better." In the evening, urged by Mr. George's serial calls, Gwen reluctantly left Sun Wuming's house. Sun Wuming, on the other hand, immediately called Winston to make arrangements. "Don't go to the house at that time, it will be a big embarrassment." "Sir, have you forgotten? The Santino family property also has a lot of houses in Los Angeles, and they are reserved for you." After Winston finished speaking, Sun Wuming remembered that the properties of the Santino family were indeed all over the world. "Then you choose the one with the best conditions, clean it up, and send the key over tomorrow." "Yes. Okay, I agree." Gwen's house. Unexpectedly, Gwen thought it would take a lot of talking to convince George and Helen to let her go on vacation with Sun Wuming. But unexpectedly, she just mentioned it, and George decisively agreed. "It's okay for you to go out and play, but Gwen, girls, you have to protect yourself. Your birthday is at the end of August." What George said was meaningful, but Gwen was stunned by his good words, and just nodded blankly. When her daughter returned to the room, Helen looked at her husband with a puzzled face. "George, aren't you most worried about what will happen to Wuming and Gwen? Why are you so big-hearted today?" "I haven't objected yet." "Why did you agree?" George smiled and shook his head. "My daughter has grown up, she knows what she's doing. Maybe we don't know Gwen well." Helen looked at her husband as if she was seeing a ghost. Couldn't this guy be stimulated by something? The next day, Sun Wuming took Gwen and boarded the plane to Los Angeles, staying away from the disputed land of New York for the time being. The two nestled in the villa and the private beach every day, enjoying the sun and sea breeze. There is also a quiet world of two. The thorough integration of the spider genes made Gwen's figure better and better, and Sun Wuming's index finger moved wildly. Now it's just the two of them. Even if Gwen screamed, no one agreed. "Wuming, wait a little longer, okay?" Gwen slapped someone's mischievous hands away, winking like silk. "Give me another month. Important things should be done at important points in time, so that it will be more meaningful." Faced with the girl's request, Sun Wuming naturally would not force it. Although as long as his attitude is firmer, Gwen will definitely push it halfway. There is no need to rush the meat to the mouth, it is more important to give two people a perfect experience. In New York, where Spider-Woman disappears, so does Green Goblin. Osborn Industries, Norman Osborn returned to his chairmanship. Several directors died accidentally in the attack launched by Green Goblin, which made him buy back the shares at a very low price. Many of the news criticizing Spider-Woman these days are fueled by him behind the scenes. At the same time, Norman also knows that without the people as restraints, his current strength is no match for Spider-Woman at all. If you want to completely defeat the opponent, you must upgrade your Green Goblin armor and flight. But in terms of weapon modification, the strength of Osborn Industry is already at its limit, unless it goes to Hammer Industry or Stark Group for cooperation. This would undoubtedly reveal his Green Goblin identity. So, Norman chose another path. If one person can't beat you, then 2, 3. Connors and Electron, who were imprisoned in the laboratory and received inhuman torture every day, were his best choices. Perhaps this is fate. The villains who appeared in New York recently are all from the Osborn Group. Putting on the Green Goblin armor again, Norman was about to search to see where Connors and Electro were locked up, when a call came in. Obadiah Stine? Norman frowned. He had naturally heard of this name, the second largest shareholder of Stark Industries, and the two had met several times, but there was no friendship. Why did the other party come to him suddenly? Norman connected the phone, and there was a burst of hearty laughter from the headset, but the words he said made him shudder. He, should I call you Director Osborn, or Mr. Daredevil? Norman's whole body was cold, his body trembled slightly, and he pretended to be calm and replied, "Mr. Stine, are you calling just as a joke? This is not funny at all." He. There was another chuckle. "Osborn, don't play dumb, do you want me to call out the hospital video that day?" Seeing that the other party had reached this point, Norman no longer pretended to be stupid, and there was a hint of evil in his voice. Obadiah, since you know my identity, are you trying to blackmail me? Norman, easy, don't be so nervous. To be honest, I admire your armor and flight controller very much. Maybe we can have some cooperation in the future. Cooperation? Norman was taken aback. Are you negotiating with me on behalf of Stark? Don't mention that disgusting name to me. Obadiah's voice suddenly became angry, snarling at the phone. Always be like this. Mention Stark Industries, people will always think of that playboy. What was he, Obadiah Stan? Joker? Norman laughed suddenly, he understood everything. It turns out that Obadiah, who has always been close to Tony Stark like family, also hides unknown ambitions. But it just so happens that with Obadiah's help, his armor and bombs can also get better upgrades. Obadiah, you're right, we really should have a good talk. As Obadiah gave an address, Norman hung up the phone, stepped on the flight controller, and sprinted away. Episode 59, Undercurrent Surge, The Birth of Iron Man, Stark Industrial Park, Division 16. Taking advantage of the darkness, Green Goblin came to the place agreed with Obadiah. As soon as he landed, Guillermo felt that there were more than a dozen sniper rifles aimed at him at the same time, and involuntarily took out the pumpkin bomb. Relax, my friend. Obadiah waved his hand, and the sniper rifle moved away instantly. He enthusiastically stepped forward and hugged Norman in front of him in armor. Mr. Green Goblin, with your help, I believe my plan will be successful. There are many scientists around. After hearing Green Goblin, they just looked at it curiously, turned their heads, and continued with their work. It's cooperation, Obadiah, and it pays off. Definitely, your flight gear, plus my battle armor, the entire military order is ours. Obadiah sneered inwardly. Old man, I'll take care of you when I finish Stark. Norman also did not believe in Obadiah's promise, but the two sides now have a basis for cooperation, and it is not now to turn their faces. He looked at the huge steel monster in front of him. Is this the battle armor you designed? With all due respect, it is impossible to drive such a huge monster with the existing technology. This behemoth with a height of nearly 7 meters and a weight of tens of tons has a huge amount of hollow in its chest, which is obviously the place where the power is driven. Obadiah smiled triumphantly. If we can't do it, it doesn't mean that the playboy can't do it. Green Goblin understood immediately. You mean, Stark's technology has made another breakthrough. The world is so unfair that people who date cover girls every day can easily develop epic-making energy technology. And he worked so hard, invested a lot of money to develop a serum, and it took so much effort. For a while, Green Goblin hated Tony too. This kind of God's darling deserves to die. Obadiah smiled and didn't reveal any more information, just stated his request. I need you to improve the flight system and control system of this armor. No problem, what can I get? Stark Industries weapons are yours to choose. Green Goblin pointed to the big hole, and asked tentatively, what about this one? What do you think? Unless you hand over your serum technology, I can give you a finished arc reactor. Then forget it. Green Goblin shook his head. He knew for himself that his serum was a half-finished product, otherwise why didn't he delay injecting Harry? The reason why Green Goblin is eyeing Spider-Woman is also to get her blood to save Harry. Whether he's Norman Osborn or Green Goblin, he's a dad. I agree, let's get started now. Obadiah laughed and held out his hand. Happy cooperation. By the way, I also hate Spider-Woman. She broke my deal several times. Inside the villa on Malibu Beach, Tony was hurrying to adjust his armor. Except for the energy provided by the core arc reactor, the other black technologies possessed by the MK armor are also numerous. Such as shock absorption system, miniature weapon technology, power assist system. Taking out every item can make a person or company earn a lot of money, so that they can eat and drink for a lifetime. After changing several materials and smashing countless collected cars, Tony finally produced an armor that he was more satisfied with, which was named 3 Malawian Kwaches. JRVIS, what color do you think is better? A gold colorway is recommended, depending on your preference. No, it's too ostentatious. Tony shook his head, looked at the car model next to him, and suddenly got inspiration. Mainly red, supplemented by gold. Here, just turn the visor into gold. Soon, a cool simulation picture appeared on the LCD screen. Tony clapped his hands. That's it. JRVIS echoed, this is in line with your usual low-key style. I don't recall adding a flattering system to your module. Sir, this is just telling the truth. After the battle armor was painted, with the help of the mechanical arm, Tony put on the battle armor. Flames burst out from under his feet and flew into the sky from the big hole made in the previous experiment, all the way to the Middle East. In Ethan's hometown, he wiped out those local warlords. On the way back, he was mistaken for the enemy by the B-22 plane of the Mi army, which caused a riot. Fortunately, with the help of Rhodes, the matter was suppressed. A week passed quickly. Sun Wuming and Gwen's Los Angeles vacation also came to an end. During this week, the two stuck together every day and visited all the fun places around them. Gwen also stepped out of the trough, with a smile on his face all the time. Playing every day would be boring. When the two of them didn't want to go out, Sun Wuming took the time to teach Gwen how to use chi. Inject her own chi into Gwen's body, let her experience this feeling well. With such an almost cheating method, Gwen quickly developed his own aura, which was very strong. After all, chi and physical fitness also have a great relationship. With Gwen's Superman-like physique, it is normal to have a huge chi. It's just that her control of chi is still far from enough. She can barely use qigong waves, but she can't even overturn a car, so it's better to get started. Gwen is not discouraged either. She is already very satisfied to be able to do this, and she can just make progress slowly in the future. By plane, the two return to New York. Although it is faster to fly back with Gwen, life is life, and acting like an ordinary person occasionally is also part of life. When I got home, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening after dinner. Wuming, I'll go back first. After not seeing her parents for a few days, Gwen still misses them a little. Great, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Gwen kissed Sun Wuming and bounced away. Looking at the girls disappearing back, the smile on the corner of Sun Wuming's mouth slowly disappeared. Gwen has come out of the shadows, but the matter is not over yet. Those media who smeared Gwen will be sanctioned, and the culprit, Green Goblin, cannot escape. Sun Wuming never cared about what Gwen usually did, but if someone bullied his woman, the nature would change. Episode 60, Tony, is your English taught by your physical education teacher? I'm not called a big shit. Sun Wuming browsed the latest New York news. Green Goblin appeared only once, attacked a biological laboratory, and then disappeared. Many netizens have begun to miss the days of Spider-Woman. In the first few days, criminals in New York thought that Spider-Woman was just resting for a few days and would reappear after a while. But after waiting and waiting, they had lost sight of the Spider-Woman roaming Manhattan and Queens, and they were emboldened again. Seeing that the crime rate is on the rise again, the public naturally understands why. Sun Wuming sneered. Self-inflicted evil cannot live. My family Gwen acted as a vigilante with good intentions, but what he got in return was the criticism and disgust of these foolish people. Deserve it. Because no real Green Goblin has been seen. So Sun Wuming couldn't lock his position through breath. But he also has a way. As long as he finds the independent atmosphere of high-speed movement, he is basically Green Goblin. In the following time, Sun Wuming will open up his perception every now and then. Finally, after 2 days, he caught a breath of high-speed movement in the air. There was no hesitation immediately, so I chased after him. JARVIS, testing for balance, pressure stability, and loss of life support function. The balance is 94%, and the air pressure remains stable. Currently, the life support function has consumed 2% of the total energy. Tony in the battle armor frowned slightly. The balance is too bad, and the consumption of the life support function is too high. It seems that it needs to be improved. Write it down, JARVIS. Yes, sir, I think you should look at this first. A radar detection map suddenly appeared on the screen, and a red was rapidly approaching him. Damn it. What speed is that? Mach 5? Mach 7? Tony screamed strangely, and JARVIS gave a timely reminder. It's Mr. Mach 8.4. According to the orbit calculation, his target is you. It can't be a missile, right? Tony was anxious, thinking it was a missile launched by the military, and identified him as an unknown flight object. Immediately call Rhodes. I'm afraid not, it's a person. People? Before Tony could ask a question, a figure stopped in front of him, and the sonic boom came slowly behind him. It was Sun Wuming who came. Why you? Looking at the iron armor that was forcibly stopped by him, Sun Wuming was full of disgust. If he hadn't seen it, he would have forgotten it. Tony Stark has also returned to New York, and Green Goblin is not the only one who can fly in the sky. He said how Green Goblin could fly so fast, it was already supersonic. With this level of technology, the current Gwen is definitely not his opponent. What do you mean? Tony was taken aback for a moment, but immediately realized, no, you know who I am? Well, Playboy has a lot of shit, I'm fine, I'll go first. Sun Wuming shook his head in disappointment and then flew towards home. Hey, wait. Tony hurriedly chased after him, but fortunately, Sun Wuming was not flying fast now, so he could still keep up. Is your English taught by your physical education teacher? My name is Stark, not a big shit. Why do you know it's me? Who the hell are you? Also, why can you fly? God, it's not scientific, so fast it will crush your body. Tony's mouth was chattering like a machine gun, and all the questions that popped out. The scene in front of him has collapsed the scientific worldview he spent decades building, and he is eager to know something from Sun Wuming. Somewhat impatient at being quarreled, Sun Wuming finally spoke. Aren't you a scientist? How can you be God if you just keep your mouth shut? Tony retorted, the end of science is theology, which is definitely not what ordinary people understand. From a scientific point of view, God is just a creature that we don't understand. That really made Tony right. Isn't a god like Thor the so-called alien? You can call me a Saiyan, or you can regard me as a god on Earth. I still deserve this title. It's crazy. Okay, big shit, that's all for today, I should go back to eat. After Sun Wuming left the last sentence, he suddenly accelerated, throwing Tony away. Sensing his breath, Gwen had already set off towards his house, and the two of them had to go out for lunch. He had no time to stay here and chat with a middle-aged man. Looking at the little red that is getting farther and farther away, Tony is still full of doubts about life. JARVIS, go back and help me make an appointment with a psychiatrist. I strongly suspect that everything just now is an illusion. Sir, the battle armor has a recording function, do you need to retrieve the recording for you? Shut up, you artificial mental retardation. Back in his villa, Tony immediately poured the armor video into the computer and inquired about Sun Wuming's personal information. Sun Wuming? He's still a high school student? No wonder he looks so young. Tony muttered, and looked at the information again, but found no useful information, so he didn't care about it. Turned around and devoted himself to the transformation of the armor. Today, he was completely abused in terms of speed. With Tony's competitive spirit, he naturally cannot tolerate such a thing happening. The battle armor must be modified to the most perfect state. The output power of the arc reactor can be increased, and more aerodynamic designs must be added to the armor. Just when Tony was forgetting about his work, Pepper came. Tony, do you need me? Hey Pepper, want something to drink? Tony came over. No thanks, the company still has a lot of things that I need to deal with. Little Pepper shook his head. The relationship between the two is a bit awkward now, more friends than lovers, coupled with the relationship between the boss and the employee, this makes Pepper don't know how to face Tony. Okay, try my whiskey next time you're not busy. Tony shrugged helplessly, sat across from Pepper, and took out a USB flash drive. Pepper, the only person I can trust now is you, I need you to do me a favor.